Today I'm speaking to Lucie Macleod, the founder of Hair Syrup, the viral hair care brand that everyone is talking about. Lucie's journey started in her student kitchen, where she began mixing DIY hair oil treatments to repair her own damaged hair. She posted about them on TikTok, where she had 3 followers, and her first video went viral and led to thousands wanting her oils and the birth of Hair Syrup. Now, just 5 years later, her brand is stocked in major retailers like Boots, Superdrug, and ASOS. She's hired a team of 20 and is on track to bring in £8.5 million next year. Stories like these so often seem like an overnight success, but I know from Lucie's very candid TikTok content that it's taken an incredible amount of grit to get here, and I cannot wait to hear her talk about it. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
We'll start at the very beginning. Did you always know that you were the type of person who wanted to run your own business?
I would say yes, definitely. But when I was younger, I think I had a big misconception that you had to be a certain age or a certain point in your life to start a business. And about a year before I started, I thought, I definitely would like to work for myself. But when I'm older and know more and this, that, and the other, and more experienced. But actually, I think it's sometimes the other way around.
Yeah, I think there's definitely we've spoken about this a little bit on some of these episodes, how much almost the naivety of not knowing what is involved in a business is actually a huge help, because it helps you to be able to take risk that, if you actually calculated everything, feels a little too terrifying.
I literally always say it. I started when I was 21, and even now that I'm 25, my frontal lobe is developing. I think I'm so much more risk averse even in those few years. And I think, gosh, in 10 years, I'll be like, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah. No,
and didn't even think about what might happen or the potential consequences. So yeah, I think starting when you're younger definitely gives you more freedom.
I love your business story because it is the perfect example of a problem-solving product that kind of goes viral for the right reasons. Do you remember what that first sample that you created was like?
Yeah, so I started my business a little bit unconventionally, I suppose. I didn't do the whole traditional sampling route and stuff like that, because I actually used these products for about 18 months. The ones that came to market were obviously different, but the original sort of recipe, I'd been using really similar ones, making them myself in my student kitchen and using them on my own hair for probably about a year and a half. But when I actually decided, okay, I could make a bit of a business out of this, seeing it come to life, even though I'd sort of handmade everything, was pretty surreal. So yeah.
And how did you go about getting that first sample even created?
So when I kind of realised that there was a gap in the market and I could actually start selling these oils, so I didn't really have any idea where to start. So I literally just had a little look online, did some very basic research, and found a cosmetic chemist who I could work with, and figured out how to get all of the formulas tested to be compliant. And I basically just did all of that within a sort of 2-month period. And then before I knew it, I had bought all of the ingredients and I was mixing them together, hand pouring them, and they were ready to be sold.
That's incredible. And how do the first prototypes of hair syrup compare to what it is now?
Oh, they're pretty different now. The kind of function of the product is not dissimilar, but the formulas have changed now. When I first started selling them, they had, maybe 5-6 ingredients in them. And then as we developed, they've got 10 different ingredients. A lot of them have got different, some of my products have got different kind of adaptogenic technologies in them. And they do all of these wonderful scientific things that at the beginning I just wouldn't have had any idea about. Yeah. So, yeah.
And what would you say the hardest part was of turning hair syrup into a kind of legitimate brand from something that you'd literally started in your student kitchen?
I would say operations and logistics was definitely my shortfall as a founder. The business is based in a really rural part of southwest Wales, and there had never been any, TikTok viral hair care companies there before. And we were in lockdown, so I didn't really know who to ask, who to speak to. I don't think I'd ever been in a warehouse before, but suddenly I needed to find my own warehouse to rent, which took about 6 months. So I'd say the hardest part, that initial step that I took, was when I started getting approached by retailers. I thought, God, I really can't send Beauty Bay a pallet of goods that's been made from a conservatory. I thought, right, I need to get this sorted. So I think just taking it from this tiny thing that was just me into an actual limited company, and I had a lease and a little mini warehouse, that was probably the most difficult part, because I just had no idea what I was doing and there was no one for me to ask. So I felt my way. You'd think that the challenges I face at this stage in my business would be so much harder because we're so much bigger, but actually it was back then when I was just 22, and it went from this tiny little thing to, we were doing, I don't know, I think we went from, 100K to 1 million in less than a year. So it was, and I still had no more experience under my belt, but then it just expanded. So it was pretty crazy.
And what tools do you have now that you wish you had back then?
So if I was starting hair syrup again, I wish I had something like Adobe Express, because it's kind of like a little social hub. It's really great for, one of our biggest sales channel obviously is TikTok. So having some software which is able to schedule TikTok posts would have absolutely saved my life, especially when I want to take a few days off. And also just having one place where I'm able to edit all of my content and keep all of the brand colors consistent, make sure that the ad graphics are in keeping with the newsletters and that everything's looking on brand, the same typography's being used. It would have saved me probably weeks of editing, and would have been great. You can also resizing images, but also keeping the quality is really important.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that especially when you're at the beginning stages of the business and you are wearing so many different hats, like you are doing every single job within that business, it's so easy to feel like, you need to spend every single second of every day on it, which often you do, but also that you need to be an expert at everything. And you can't become a graphic designer in the same day as you're trying to also be the logistical person and also do all of this. So actually just being able to free up some of your time makes the biggest difference as a founder.
Yeah, and I think as well, because of where we are, recruitment can be quite difficult. We don't have graphic designers in-house, and especially when you're first starting out, you don't have the budget to be employing full-time graphic designer, and often your first hires will be people who are like you and can wear different hats. So having things available, especially when you're a small team, small brand starting out, that you don't have to be an expert to navigate, that anyone can turn the hand to and is really user-friendly, is super, super important. And I kind of wish I'd known about these things and had more access to them when I was first starting out, because it would have been so much easier.
You recently appeared on Dragon's Den and you walked away without taking investment. But I personally feel like the narrative that you created did more for you than having investment could have done. What is your take on having gone on Dragon's Den now, knowing that you didn't take investment?
So obviously I got asked to go on Dragon's Den. I never would have applied myself, but when an opportunity comes to you, and I think a lot of founders can relate to this, I hate saying no to things, especially when it's such good publicity. Obviously, you don't go into something like that hoping to get rejected by all 6 dragons, but that's what happened. And when I had such a strange experience when I was on the show, the episode, I was in there for 3 hours, and honestly, if everyone had seen the whole 3 hours, as if there wasn't enough controversy around what people saw, it was just insane. When I was in there, it was a real once-in-a-lifetime experience, and so much went on. And when I came out of the den, I was really upset, and I didn't really understand what had just happened, and it's not what I expected. I thought I'd go in there and I'd have a normal pitch and everything would go like it does for all the other contestants, but obviously that didn't happen. And I was really upset about it for a few days. And then when I sort of calmed down and my adrenaline subsided, I thought, well, whatever happens from this, the rejection is going to make for quality content. I thought it's like when someone gets dumped and they have this big comeback era. I thought, no, this is actually really good. And I don't even know when. I think it might have been when I was speaking to the girl who does my socials, and she thought it was brilliant that we'd been rejected, because she's like, think what we can post about this online. It's like, if you got an offer, if you go on about it, you're gloating. But if you've been rejected and you go on about it, you're sort of having a bit of a laugh about the whole situation. So we quite quickly decided, okay, we're going to flip this on the head and turn this. We're already so viral. We thought this is going to be huge and people are going to be really interested in it. And we didn't know how they'd edit it. So for about 8 months, I thought, I don't know how I'm going to come across here. I don't know what, it's a 20-minute segment. What are they going to take from those 3 hours? What are they going to show? But I just committed myself to whatever they show, I'm going to make a positive, lighthearted spin on it. I don't want to come across, because I didn't want to be a sore loser. I didn't want to shy away from it. And I thought we'll just make some really fun content out of it. And we discovered that the dragons all use TikTok themselves. So we thought, oh, okay, this is quite cool. Hopefully they'll see our posts. And we just turned it into a big meme, basically. And we got something like 22 million profile views in a few days within the episode airing. And everyone just ate our content up and they just loved it. So it could not have gone any better from a founder's perspective. Although I got rejected, it just couldn't have gone any better, because we've been able to build even more brand awareness around it, even more, we're so jokey and lighthearted on social. So I didn't realize at the time that such a big rejection and what felt like a big failure was going to turn into probably one of the most significant positive turns that for my brand would ever take.
But I think that says so much about you and your team as a business. I think that, many, many people have been on something like that and faced rejection and not turned it into the opportunity you did. And I think that says so much about who you are and your tenacity and the brand personality and all of that. And I think it just goes to show, nothing is kind of predestined when it comes to a business's success and when it comes to traditional routes of success as well. It really is what you make of it. And you've made so much of the opportunities that you've been given or not been given. And I think that's such an inspiring lesson for aspiring founders, because it's very easy to look at rejection purely as rejection rather than as an opportunity.
Rejection is a huge part of running a business. I can't tell you how many times I've been rejected in so many different ways. And if you let that knock your confidence or knock your faith in your brand, you wouldn't be able to run a business. You have to just think, and I literally think this before I go to bed every night, it's never rejection, it's always redirection. And I thought, if I had got an offer on Dragon's Den, and I beat myself up for a few days, I thought, oh, why didn't I say this? And if I'd said that, and such simple things. And they said to me, oh, you would have got 6 offers if you'd come in with asking for 1%. I thought, oh no, I should have asked for 1%. And actually all these things are working out in the most perfect possible way for you and for your brand, but you just don't realize it at the time. So as soon as you shift your mindset from thinking, oh, this is embarrassing, I failed, this is awful, to this is happening in the way it's supposed to happen because this is going to lead me to something better, then you've cracked it. Because that's so much of what your life will be like if you want to go down that route as a founder, as an entrepreneur.
Obviously, in the time since filming for Dragon's Den, you've secured some incredible retailers like Urban Outfitters, like Boots. What advice would you give to early stage founders wanting to secure big partnerships with much bigger companies like that?
So all of the retailers that I work with, it's actually funny because I've only ever reached out to a few, and the few that I've reached out to have rejected me. So all of the retailers that I work with, the big ones, Boots, Urban Outfitters, they contacted me. I think with retailers, as a founder, you've got to remember they've got eyes everywhere. And if they want you and want your brand, they will find you, they'll contact you. But I believe that a lot of the time the retailer knows when the right time is, perhaps more than you do. So make sure you've absolutely perfected your D2C first, and then look at scaling through retailers, because as soon as you start working with retailers, you've got to bear in mind your margin is going to be slashed. You're going to have to employ people who are probably going to be quite expensive. They have to know about operations. You have to adhere to all of these big retailers. They've got really strict goods in, goods out policies, and you've got to know kind of what you're doing. So I'd say don't rush retail, because there's time for that.
What role would you say that creativity has in building a successful brand? And how can entrepreneurs use Adobe Express to help turn their vision into reality?
I think creativity is probably the most important part of growing a brand. I think it needs to run through every element, from your content to the products themselves, and especially across your socials. And using something like Adobe Express, they have so many different features on there where you can use text to create images. And we actually did this recently when we were creating a new brand deck. We wanted to make sure that the brand deck was super fun, interactive, creative, and just spoke to the ethos of Hair Syrup. So we took our logo and we removed the background and basically turned the logo into liquid, bubbly syrup. So when you were looking, the logo was literally made out of liquid, and it just looked really cool. And so far we've had a great response to it.
And what is something about entrepreneurship that no one talks about but you think everyone should know?
I would say that one thing no one prepares you for is how lonely it can be when you start out as a founder. Also, how when you get to a stage in a business where everyone's clapping, everyone's celebrating you because you've achieved certain milestones, that is all great and fine, but there's probably going to be stages right at the beginning where no one's believing in you. You're going to be completely by yourself. You're not going to have a team of people around you saying, you're amazing, you're doing great, and you will just have to do it by yourself. So it can be really lonely and can feel like it's you against the whole world, but that teaches you so much about resilience, and it really makes you such a stronger person. So I'd always recommend, as hard as it is, go through that. Don't fast forward, because those are going to teach you some really important skills that you're definitely going to need when the brand scales.
And if you could go back and give yourself some advice at the beginning of your journey, what do you think it would be?
I would definitely say, be careful who you place any trust in. Get things recommended to you. Work with people who've worked with other brands that are similar to yours, and then proceed. I'd probably add as well, one thing that I did well and I'm so grateful that I did this, is being so careful with money at the start. Really just get your cash built up before you go thinking that the way to scale a brand is aggressive ad spend and paying someone $3,000 to post your product on their Instagram, and holding big events and spend is in my opinion, and the way that I've built Hair Syrup, is just be careful with it, because once you get to the 7-figure mark, money becomes a whole new ball game, and it's so easy to lose your footing. So if you've been careful until you get to that mark, you're at a much better stead moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such good advice. Well, thank you so much for joining me. You've been incredible and very, very inspiring.
Thank you.